Hello, in this video we are going to continue our study of the transform techniques that you have been seeing. In particular, we will see some applications of the DTFT and the Z transform for certain analysis of certain LTI systems. We will begin with the ideal low pass filter. The ideal low pass filter is a very interesting building block that allows you to understand, analyze and develop very many systems. It has many quirks which are very useful to understand. So that is something which we will focus on in this video. So the ideal low pass filter is something which can be understood by looking at its DTFT, which is defined in this manner. So h of e power j omega, I'm just going to give you a plot. And we are going to basically define it as 1 between minus omega c and omega c, and 0 outside between omega c and pi and minus omega c and minus pi. Of course, this repeats, and if you extend, you will find that again there is a it's 1 between 2 pi minus omega c and 2 pi plus omega c, and so on. So whenever we talk about the DTFT, implicitly we will keep in mind its periodicity. That is something which I urge you to never forget. Okay. So now we have this definition of the ideal low pass filter. If you focus on the part between minus pi and pi, you will see that it is first of all real, because we have not defined any phase. So the phase is implicitly 0, and more importantly, we see that it is symmetric, meaning it is even, because to the left and right of 0 the values are the same. So this is actually real and even. If you remember the properties of the discrete time Fourier transform, a real and even sequence has a real and even DTFT, which means the inverse DTFT must be real and even. Let us find out what the Hn that corresponds to this sequence is. We will just apply the formula for the inverse DTFT. Okay, h of e power j omega, e power j omega n d omega. We will apply this for all n carefully. Okay, so let us say that this you notice that this is 1 between minus omega c and omega c. So I can rewrite this as 1 upon 2 pi integral minus omega c to omega c e power j omega n d omega. Okay. So now we know that this is e power j omega n can be written as cos omega n plus j sin omega n. Now there are multiple ways of doing this integral, but the easy way is to actually split it in this manner, because if you do so, you will find that this is an even function of omega, while this is an odd function of omega, and you know that when you integrate between minus a and a, an odd function integrates to 0. So using this trick, we can rewrite this as 1 upon 2 pi integral minus omega c to omega c cos omega n d omega, and you know that for even functions you can replace this with 0 and write 2 over here. So this is going to be 1 upon pi, and the integral of cos is actually sine, so it is sine omega n upon omega n between 0 and pi. Now the problem is, you get a 0 by 0 like the situation over here. That can be avoided if you kept the minus omega c over here. Otherwise we will just take the limit, and you will find that this is sine omega c n by pi n. This is something which is very useful to remember, and it's something which appears again and again in DSP, So ideal low pass filter with cutoff at omega c, remember that it is sine omega cn by pi n is the impulse response. Now there is a problem. We get that 0 by 0 thing here when n is 0. So we will actually just puncture it and say this is for n not equal to 0, and when n is 0 we handle it in a special case. So when n is 0, then this integral just becomes omega c upon pi. Now that you can also get by just manually substitute, taking the limits over here. So you can just write omega c upon pi when n is equal to 0. So this is very, very common, which is why if you see some DSP textbooks and notes, they will just write this expression, and implicitly when n is 0 you have to take the limit or you have to patch it up. Now many of you will try to write this in NumPy, SciPy, or NumPy or MATLAB or something like that, and then you'll get a problem. The problem is with this 0 by 0 division. There are two ways to avoid it. One, get the Norton number and you manually patch the 0 by 0 part, or another elegant approach is you can try to relate this to sinc. So you know that sinc of x is actually sine of pi x upon pi x. Now what is the connection between this and sinc? So sine of omega c n upon pi n, we can actually write this as sine of pi omega c, omega c n by pi, and divided by pi n. So I am going to write this as and I need to compensate with another omega c upon pi. So this, if you notice, can be written as omega c upon pi sinc of omega c n upon pi. So this is the other approach to writing the ideal low pass filter without having the issues dealing with the issue of the 0 by 0 division. Okay. So this is the impulse response of the ideal low pass filter. Okay. So now if you notice, this ideal low pass filter looks to be very clean. It looks like, it's 1 between minus omega c and omega c and 0 otherwise. Now in the terms of the definition, there is a bit of an issue at omega c. So for example, one could define the ideal low pass filter to be 1 for mod omega less than omega c, 0 else, but it's basically 0 but for other values of pi. I am being somewhat loose over here, or I can write it less than or equal to. Okay, so that is a, both of these will give the same inverse Fourier transform, because the integral doesn't care for the value at exactly one point. This leads to a certain issue which we will look at later. So for frequencies which are to the left of omega c and right of omega c, that is frequencies less than omega c and more than omega c, what the ideal low pass filter does is very clear. You give it an input which has a frequency less than omega c, with the same thing as output. You give an input where the frequency is more than omega c, the low pass filter cuts it off. You get 0 as the output. You give a signal which has the mixture, it gives only that part which has frequencies between minus omega c and omega c. Okay, so now let's actually inspect this sequence. So we have Hn is equal to sine omega c n upon pi n. Omega c is the cutoff frequency, which is a number between, I am just going to take it as a positive number between 0 and pi. Now notice that this is defined for all n. It is an infinite impulse response filter, and the more important and interesting thing is that it is not realizable. Why is it not realizable? The reason, so when you talk about a filter being realizable, what we mean is that if you are able to write an LCCDE, a linear constant coefficient difference equation, which actually performs the convolution, then you are able to provide a realization of the filter. Meaning you can write a code on a DSP or on your computer, which will essentially, given an input, give you the output that corresponds to the filter. In the case of this sink, it is double-sided infinity. So your flip and add and realization is not really possible. So this filter is actually not realizable, which means that it's actually a mythical filter, meaning the filter exists, but you cannot implement it practically. You cannot pass any signal through an ideal low pass filter. Now you may argue that if I give you a sequence, you may be able to find its DTFT, multiply its DTFT on paper and pen and do it. That is possible. What I'm saying is you cannot write a computer program which for every input will give you the ideal low pass filter. Because of this double-sided infinite nature, this filter is not realizable, meaning you cannot write code to implement this filter. Okay. So now one interesting thing is, okay, this is not realizable. So are we hosed? Is this useless? So whenever we are dealt with these kinds of situations, in signal processing where there are these discontinuities which cause, these infinite nature coming up, you can always make certain approximations. See, we are in the business of engineering, so we have to come up with some approximations which allow us to do our job. What do we do over here? We can actually take a workaround, and the workaround is very simple. We can try the truncation approach. That is, we restrict the ends. Okay. See, sin omega Cn by pi n, as n becomes large, the values become small. So maybe we won't incur that much error when we truncate. So let me define h1 of n as sin omega Cn upon pi n for n between minus m plus 1, and so on up to m minus 1 and m. That is, for 2m plus 1 points, it is matching h1, the hn, and 0 for all other n. So you are essentially chopping it to be only between minus m and m, hoping that it will do a job. It will do its job very well. Now the moment you do this kind of thing, remember, this filter is no longer the ideal low pass filter. But our question is this good enough? Meaning, can we use this in place of the ideal low pass filter and still get our filtering done? So this is where the advantage of DSP comes in. We can actually study what happens in a very easy manner. Okay. So while we do that, I will just explain, while I prepare for that, I'll just explain what we are actually going to see. Okay. So this filter is actually a truncation. But when we want to understand the truncation from a frequency perspective, it is essential for us to express this h1n in terms of, or as a transformation of the original hn. This is the original hn between minus m and m. How do we express h1n in terms of hn? So one very useful way is to write it as hn multiplied by wn, where wn does the job of truncation. That is, wn is actually the sequence u of n plus m minus u of n minus m minus 1. Now this is a very interesting way to express it. If you substitute values which are, say, less than minus m, let's say you substitute minus 2m, both of these are 0. If you substitute minus m plus 1, this one goes to 1, this second one remains at 0. Finally, if you substitute the value as m, you get this as 1, this is still 0. If you substitute m plus 1, then the first one becomes 1, the second one starts becoming 1 and cancels out. Okay. Alternately, you can also say in a more simple way, Wn is 1 for n is equal to minus m plus 1 and so on up to m, 0 else. This kind of sequence which multiplies hn to give me h1n is called a rectangular window. This window is because in essence it's almost like this. Something is very large and you are looking at it through a window. Okay, that's why it's called windowing in DSP parlance. So this rectangular window is because we are essentially multiplying the part we want by 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 and the rest we are chucking out. You can also have triangular window and many other advanced windows which have various properties. We will see those later. But for now, this kind of rectangular window is giving us this truncated version. Now, why are we interested in this, expressing it in this manner? There is a good reason why. If we want to look at the Fourier transform properties of h of e power j omega, then we know that that is the original h of e power j omega, convolution and the two circular convolution with w of e power j omega. Okay, which means the ideal low pass filter h of e power j omega, whose frequency response is a very nice rectangle which cuts off after omega c or minus omega c, gets convolved with whatever the frequency response of this w of e power j omega is. That is what is happening. So, to understand how the properties of h of e power j omega are modified to get h1 of e power j omega, we just need to find out the DTFT of w of e power j omega. Okay, how do we do that? Well, it's very easy. We will just say w of e power j omega. Remember the definition, it's 1 between minus m and m is just e power j omega m, just by using the formula e power j omega m minus 1 plus dot 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 plus e power j minus j omega m minus 1 plus e power minus j omega m. Okay, so fine. So let's try to do some simplification. Okay, so I am going to just, this is a geometric progression. I'm just going to take the first term e power j omega m, and if you then take the rest of the terms, you will find that you get 1 minus e power minus j omega times, so I believe you will get 2m plus 1 divided by 1 minus e power minus j omega. This is actually the using the formula for the summation of a geometric progression. Okay, this can be simplified further. I am actually going to take e power minus j omega 2m plus 1 by 2 out. Reason is because if I do that, e power j omega m, and I do e power minus j omega 2m plus 1 upon 2 out, I will get e power j omega 2m plus 1 upon 2 minus e power minus j omega 2m plus 1 upon 2, okay, divided by, and in the denominator I am going to take e power minus j half omega out, multiplied by, and I am going to get e power j omega by 2 minus e power minus j omega by 2. Now there is a reason why I am doing this. I am going to actually divide both of these by j2, because then these two become sines. Okay, so let's look over here. This e power minus j omega by 2 cancels this 1. This e power j omega m cancels this e power j omega 2m upon 2, which means that what remains is essentially sine 2m plus 1 by 2 omega by sine omega by 2. This is what, I'm sorry about this. This is the DTFT of w of e power j omega. So this DTFT of w of e power j omega is what convolves with the ideal frequency response circularly. Now again, this is DSP, so let us actually view this in a plot. Okay, so let me just make this window size appropriate for you. Okay, we have an IPython window. Okay, so let's actually import numpy as np. We'll import pylab, and then from scipy.signal we will import freqz. Now to create the ideal low pass filter, I was mentioning to you two approaches. Let's compare both the approaches. So I'm just going to take omega c to be pi by 2. Okay, that is the cutoff frequency that I'm going to use. So I'm just going to say h is equal to sine omega. Let me first define n. I'll take 201 points. So my n is going to be, I'll maybe do it this way, n is equal to np dot a range minus n plus 1 to include the last point. H is sine omega c into n by pi n. Notice that numpy gives me a runtime warning, invalid value encountered in true divide. Let's check exactly where. That happens when this n is 0, and that will precisely be the 101st point, which I can do this to show you. I get an NaN. So I can always patch it by saying this is basically a patched version. Okay. So now I can, the other approach is, if you don't want to do it this way, you can always just do, okay, by the way, you can just do omega c upon pi into np dot sync of omega c upon into n upon pi. I'm sorry. Of course, there should be a multiplication sign over here. Okay. So again, if you check the value over here, it will be omega c upon pi. This is also going to give you the same value. Either of the approaches is suitable. So now let us actually do the freqz of this and see what we get. And let us plot it. I'll plotting the absolute value of h, and what we see is that there are ripples. These ripples, basically you see it looks one side because of the freqz by default takes values between 0 and pi. So it starts, it's at 1, but there is a hovering, and this is very similar to the Gibbs phenomenon which we saw when we were doing the Fourier series. So if you zoom in a little bit, what is the problem? It looks close to 1. The problem is, if you look over here, there's 1.475. This frequency, which means if you give the input as cos 1.475 or n or e power j 1.475 n, the gain is not 1, it's 1.025 as you can see. But then if you give the input as the frequency 1.51, which is the frequency over here, then the gain is actually 0.95. So two frequencies which neighbor each other are going to get different gains. So now if you are going to actually use this kind of a filter to do low pass filtering, the problem is that you are going to see differential gains for these frequencies even though you expect them to have the same gain of 1, which means you are going to end up with some distortion. Let's actually look over here. We are assuming that anything beyond pi by 2, there is 1.57, is part of the so-called stop band, meaning whatever is over here should be 0. Look at this frequency, 1.6. 1.6 has a gain of 0.075. Look at this frequency, 1.63. 1.63 has a gain of 0.05. So this filter is actually losing on both the ends. It is actually not having a flat gain in the pass band, which is should be 1. It is not having 0 at the stop band. Okay, because it's not, it has some non-zero gain. Now to understand this, we can always just look at this property of this window. So what is this so-called window that we're talking about? Okay, the window is actually the ones, it's 201 length ones, right? Because if you look at our H, it's length 201. So we windowed the ideal low pass filter in a symmetric way between minus M and M. So let's actually do the same thing over here. Let's look at the property of the window. So this is the property of the window that you see. Okay, it's one-sided. To show you both sides, let me actually show you. What happens if you do a both-sided one. Okay, I'll make it 409.6, and then I'll do the. Let me just check the FREQZ help. Okay, so I'll make it whole. Okay, and then I'm going to plot it with the FFT shift so that you see the shifted versions of the frequencies. So FFT shift. So this is the plot of the W. Okay, ignore the line at the top. You see that there's actually these. Okay, I think maybe I think I should not do that. Let me just plot this. Yeah. Okay, so in that case, let me just do this. Okay, so you see what happens. This looks like a sink. Sorry, this looks like an impulse, almost like an impulse, but there are these little tiny ripples, and these little tiny ripples are what plays spoil sport. For example, if you look over here, okay, this looks like a sink-like shape. It's not an impulse. It doesn't, it's not like a very sharp one, but you can get closer to an impulse by doing one thing. We took n to be 100, right? Let's take n to be 1000, and then let's find the FREQZ of this. And then let's plot. Now this filter, okay, I think I need to make it more accurate, sorry. Now this filter looks better, but even then, if you look inside the passband, close to the cutoff frequency, there's a ripple. Similarly, look at the stop band. There is still some bit of extra slack happening over here. It doesn't go to 0. In fact, even here, never goes to 0 fully. Touches 0, but doesn't go to 0 fully all the time. Let us actually now look at the window, the property of the window. Okay, now the window will be 2001 in length. See, it's closer to an impulse, but still, if you look over here, this thing is convolving with your rectangle to make it perform not that way. So that is essentially what is causing you the trouble. So anyway, given that this is the case, you should remember that windowing using a rectangular window is one way to achieve a realizable low pass filter, but not the ideal low pass filter. You can get closer and closer, but then the larger you make it, the larger the length you make it, the more complex the filter is, the more number of multiplications that you have to perform. Let's actually look at the time domain response of the, let's actually look at the time domain response of your, okay, I think that's what happened. Let's look at the time domain version of your filter. Okay, I'll just do a stem plot. So it looks like a sink. It looks like a sink-like shape, and notice that as you make n larger and larger, the values are smaller. They tend to get smaller, but they are never 0. Another important thing is I told you that the original DTFT was real and even. Even this is real and even. Let's take a larger n. It goes very close to 0 for large n. Okay, but even if you take that large n, notice that it's not exactly 0. There is some bit of non-zero values, and these non-zero values cannot be ignored if you want to avoid that extra ripple. That is something which you must keep in mind about the ideal low pass filter. Okay, so if you want to understand the cause for the ripples when you truncate an ideal low pass filter appear because of the convolution of the Fourier transform of the rectangular window, which looks like this ripple like shape. The ripple like shapes tend to reduce as the rectangular window becomes larger, but they disappear only when you use an infinite rectangular window, which means no windowing. Okay, let's now go back over here and let's try to just see one other property of the ideal low pass filter. So let's take a new page. So if you look at the ideal low pass filter, so it's sine omega c n upon pi n. Okay, the question is, if you recall, I was telling you that it has this kind of shape in the frequency domain, and if you want to understand the operation of this filter, if you take something like cos omega naught n, let me take another color. Let's take cos omega naught n. Okay, its frequency response is going to look like this: two impulses, one at minus omega naught, one at omega naught. And these two impulses, if you basically take them and then maybe I'll just if those two impulses fall within the pass band of this filter, the output is going to be the same cos. But if the two impulses are outside this omega c, the output is going to be 0, because you are exactly going to multiply you're exactly going to multiply the impulses by 0 and you're going to get 0. But the trouble happens when we have this borderline case where the omega c essentially matches the, we just select it again. What happens when the omega c matches the omega 0? What happens when you pass this through the filter? Okay, that is something which we can see. This also is connected to another question. Is this filter is this stable? So you know that finite impulse response sequences are always correspond to stable systems. Many infinite impulse response systems also correspond to stable systems. For example, a power n un for mod a less than 1, or even mod a power n for that matter corresponds to a stable system. What about this guy? Okay, so again, if you remember the proof for BIBO stability, we did this matching of the sequence. We basically tried to construct an input that gave us something which blows up and things like that. Let's at least study this sine of omega cn by pi n for, let's say, positive values of n. I'm just going to take 1 onwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm going to write my sync value and I'm going to construct an input. Remember, it is flipped, so I'm going to construct an input which is going to give us some potentially blowing up of the sync. So I'm actually going to fix my omega c. I'm going to make it pi by 2. Omega c is pi by 2. So sine pi by 2n upon pi n. So when n is 1, it's sine pi by 2, it's going to be 1 upon pi. When n is 2, I get 0. When n is 3, sine of 3 pi by 2 is minus 1, so I get minus 1 by 3 pi. When n is 4, I get 0. When n is 5, I get 1 by 5 pi, 6, 0, minus 1 by 7 pi, 0, 1 by 9 pi, and so on. So the pattern is really clear. For 1, 5, 9, I get positive. For 3, I think 3, 7, 11, I get negative values. Okay. So if I want to construct an input that when you convolve and multiply, you get something which adds up, I will choose this value to be plus 1. This value I can choose 0. This value is minus 1, because so that minus into minus is plus. This value is 0. This value is plus 1. This value is 0. This value is minus 1, 0, 1, and so on. Because then, if I during the convolution, if I multiply and I basically get, h of n x of h of k x of n minus k. So you have this minus k over here. So if you do this multiplication for the positive terms, you get 1 upon pi plus 1 upon 3 pi plus 1 upon 5 pi plus 1 upon 7 pi and so on. Notice that this x of n is bounded because its value magnitude is never more than 1, it's always 1. So this is actually 1 upon pi times 1 plus 1/3 plus 1/5 plus 1/7 and so on. Now this particular series is one of the most mystifying series. It's actually related to the so-called harmonic series. And the sad thing about this is that it grows very slowly, really slowly, but deceptively, because it goes to infinity. That is, the harmonic series sums to infinity, which means that this bounded input yields unbounded output. Okay, this is very strange because you gave other bounded, if you give a value, if you give an input less than omega c, it gives the same thing as output. If that is bounded, the output is bounded. If you give something more than omega c, it gives 0, which is bounded. But then at exactly omega, at exactly some frequency, what happens? So for this particular filter, let's actually see what happens. It's 1 0 minus 1 0 1 0 minus 1 0 is actually a shifted or version of cos pi by 2n. Because if you start substituting values, of course maybe there's a shift by 1 because n is 1, it's 1, but still go with me. If you put n is 0, you get 1, n is 1, you get 0, n is 2, you get minus 1, and 3 you get again 0, and so on, 1. So this sequence is actually just a shifted version of cos of pi by 2n, which means that the output of, I am going to write a general statement even though I did it only for pi by 2, sin omega cn by pi n is not defined for e power j omega cn plus or minus. So if you give the exact cutoff frequency as the input, the output is not defined, and this goes back to the original point that I was making. When you have this kind of situation, notice that over here there is an abrupt jump, there is a discontinuity. So because there is a discontinuity, exactly what happens over there is not very well defined. But this happens only when there is an absolute discontinuity. The moment you convolve with something like the Fourier transform of a rectangular window, then this problem will not arise. If you don't believe me, have a look over here. So let's do it for the case of 1000. Let's find the frequency response. Let's plot. Okay, not this one, sorry, I should have done it for H. Okay, it did the full. I don't want the full, I want only the partial one. Okay, let's actually zoom in to see what happens over here. Okay, notice that there's a gradual transition. So here you can clearly see what the output will be for these inputs. If you could give the e power j omega n where this omega is, you can clearly define the output because there's a gradual transition. this transition is produced by your rectangular windowing. So this rectangular windowing produces this transition which ensures that the output does not really get unbounded. So the moment you truncate the filter, of course it's an FIR filter, it has to be stable. It cannot give unbounded output for bounded input. One manifestation of that is that the point at which you got an unbounded output for bounded input, that point has been smeared so that the abrupt jump is no longer there, so that you have a well-defined output for every frequency. In fact, if you find the value exactly at pi by 2, you will find that this is going to be exactly around half. That always happens, irrespective of what n you choose. So if you look, for example, so if you look at the len of h, okay, 4006, if you look at w of 2048, that's close to pi by 2. If you look at h of 2048, that's actually really close to half. So always at the midpoint, you're always going to have the average of the upper and lower value, which is 1.5, and you're going to have 0.5. So this is something which always happens. So what is the importance of the ideal low pass filter? The ideal low pass filter offers you a template. It offers you, as you have seen in your homework, it offers you a template using which you can construct other filters. You can also construct many practical low pass filters using the ideal low pass filter. That is something we will see when we discuss filter design. And you can also convert low pass filters to band pass filters, high pass filters using some simple transformations. And basically it serves as a neat template. The quirks of an ideal low pass filter are also interesting, and they have connections with many continuous time filtering related things also. It's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the ideal low pass filter and its various properties. Okay. Thank you.